Welcome to DeadManTalkings. Tonight's show is a true compilation of stories and encounters that have been sent to me. As ever, a huge thank you to my friends and subscribers that have got in touch and sent over their harrowing experiences. Of course, if you have a strange or terrifying experience of your own, whether it's paranormal or cryptid, or just plain unexplainable, please do get it over to my email, which is dmtforestofear@gmail.com. Or of course you can go to the website and the submit report or story page, and that's www.dmtforestofear.com. Looking forward to getting back into the true aspect of things, guys. A lot of the long-standing subscribers will know me for doing that predominantly in my first year and a half, 2 years. I think we covered some really groundbreaking encounters and reports. But of course there is much more to be done and much more to be discovered and presented to all of you good listeners at home. And with my health now being about 80%, I'm looking forward to getting stuck in and speaking with you all once again and trying to get to the bottom of these strange and sometimes unexplainable experiences. And so, as ever, please do let us know what you thought down below in the comments box. Please do like and share. It really does help with the channel and our community further. And why not hashtag TeamFEAR. And with that aside, let's get into the first Dogman encounter sent over by my good friend and subscriber, Jerry Poteet. Entitled, The Dog Boss. Let's get straight into that. Hi DMT, it's Jerry. I had an encounter with a dogman, and I believe it was an alpha male. I'm only judging it from its appearance though, so I'll tell you about it and let you be the judge. Well, first off, the encounter took place in North Carolina, around the East Rural area. I've had several encounters and so have many of my cousins, but I'll just stick to the most relevant ones for now. So, to start off, and yes, I'll keep it as brief as possible, I'm a 27-year-old male. I have cousins around that age range as well, give or take a few years on about 3 of them. This takes place around 10 years ago, however, when we all lived together in an old house on the edge of town with 3 adults. The mother and father of 3 of my cousins, and then my dad, sister and I lived there too. I was into Japanese culture around that time, and so I referred to my older sister as Ni-chan, and it stuck with me until my adult years. And just in case you get lost while reading this later, I just wanted to clear that up. And so, there are also my 3 cousins, Donato, Ricky and Sandra. And yeah, looking back, it was just 3 guys and 2 girls between us. Our house, as many in the East Rural area of NC do, had a wooded area in the backyard, but a paved road in the front. Now with that done, we moved into that house I mentioned earlier around wintertime of 2010. But none of that exactly started until spring the next year. It first began with us seeing large black wolves around the trash can when it would start filling up with our garbage. I don't want you to think this was an instant type of encounter, but rather over the years or months type of thing. This snooping around the trash cans lasted about a month or so before we started seriously looking into it. And at first, we thought it was just the natural order of things, and we had to accept it by choosing to live out in the countryside. Then we later noticed that in our area there should be only red wolves, the smaller of the wolves between the grey and itself, and basically there should not be any wolves the size of black bears on our property, or anywhere. And so, as typical scared human fashion is, we got armed up and soon amassed a gun collection the rest of the week that would make the proudest of rednecks jealous. Next, when we saw the wolves come back one day, we sneaked around to the front yard with our rifles and took aim over the fence, separating the backyard from the front of the side of the house. They had their backs turned to us, but ears were turned backwards as they tore through the garbage. Then the 3 of us took aim, myself, Ricky and Donato. Ricky whispered lightly, "On 3. And after he whispered that, one of the wolves did something unthinkable. You probably guessed it. This mofo stood on 2 legs and turned to face us. By the expression on its face, I got the feeling it was fully aware the whole time we were there. It had these amber eyes lowered in an intelligent, cold, calculating way. Mouth or snout was closed. It felt like he was saying to us, "Shoot, human. Give me a reason for us to tear you apart." And well, I know it sounds crazy, but that's the feeling I got from it in those few seconds it stood up and faced us. Well, this went on for about 30 seconds altogether. And while it was facing us, the two other wolves, but not by much honestly, paid us no mind at all while they continued to search through the garbage. And yeah, we all froze in fear. It's like our worlds were shattered by this thing standing upright. He wasn't jumping in the air like Fido for a little treat. He just stood, stared us down before he did a loud growl. I don't know how to describe it. We didn't shoot anything that day, and Ricky later said we might not have a firearm in our collection that could stop it from that range, or if at all. When the wolf stood up on 2 feet, he was nearly 7 feet tall and looked at the time 400 or so pounds of muscle. However, this was just the first encounter with this specific wolf. And over the course of 3 more years, he got even larger, but I'll come back to that in a second. After we went back into the house, the wolf, Dogman or whatever, went back to all fours and then continued what it was doing with the other two. Ricky and Donato's mother told us that she actually felt the kitchen table vibrate a few minutes ago, the cabinets too. She asked us if we knew anything about it. We told her it was the big hoss outside. That was the nickname we gave it. She looked out the window and they were all in the process of leaving. She said, "Oh fuck, not again." And then I guess she saw the firearms we just had and asked why we didn't shoot it. I don't think any of us had a real answer for her. But she is gun illiterate, and so we just made up some bullshit about the guns jamming at the same time or something like that, and called it a day. My dad and my cousin's dad both worked night shifts and usually slept through the day, while Ricky had a day shift and me and Donato, along with Nichan and Sandra, all didn't have jobs at the time. But what I'm saying is that dealing with those wolves coming too close to the house was the 5 of us' responsibility. One time, Donato and his dad had a hilarious argument that had his dad saying, "I provide all the food in the house. The least you can do is make sure some big-ass wolf don't tear me apart while I sleep." I don't know. It was just the way he delivered it which made me fall out of my chair, laughing. He had spit and all that flying out of his mouth, and he held his hands up, presenting it, while his head swung with each word. But what wasn't funny was how over the next few months, it didn't stop. We tried several times to ambush the dog trio, but every time we would get a good vantage spot, top floor of the attic or top floor bathroom or side of the house, wherever we could aim a rifle out the window. He would just stop what he was doing and face our exact direction, and with the same stare that he gave us last time. I put 2 and 2 together and came to the conclusion that if it's a dog creature, then it's obvious he would have our scent by now. He knew exactly where to look every single time. He didn't turn his head or squint his already lowly held eyes, or turn his neck or try to see us. No, he knew exactly where we were every single time. Sometimes Sandra and Nichan would be with us as well, and so I guess he got their scent too now. It would mentally shake us up whenever he would do this too. We just couldn't pull the trigger every single time. None of us felt confident we could put it down with a clean shot, and if we wounded it, then who's to say it wouldn't want revenge? It's not going to stand there and wait to be shot again. And to be honest, I don't think he considered us a threat anymore after we chickened out the first time we had our encounter. It was that, or he just simply did not care about us per se, but did care about the challenge to his authority we represented. On the flip side of things, after the months went by of this Dogman trio visiting the side of the house for our trash, nobody was injured. They were scary as hell to look at, but if he knew where we were at all times, then he could have easily kicked down the door and dragged us out one by our dicks, is how we figured it. So, what's the point? They didn't have a set time they came by either. It was just during the daylight always. Yes, I said daylight. Werewolf theory debunked, right? Anyhow, a year of this went by and life went on as normal. Then the months started going by after that, and all with no attacks on our family. The 5 of us made the conclusion that if we leave them alone, they'll leave us alone. They lost interest after a while, but I didn't. I waited every time by the kitchen window for them to come by. I had my phone and YouTube and etc. But I made sure to keep my eye on them. And over time I saw Big Hoss's coat change from all black and shaggy fur to having a lighter silver fur develop on his back. He looked to be about 8 or 9 feet tall now, and 700 plus pounds easily. Pure muscle. And no, he was not taking any form of shit from anybody. He was ready to metaphorically go at moment's notice, like some kind of super dog soldier man beast. I know, I kind of trailed off there for a minute, but it's also the aura I felt around him. It's not like he just sat down at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and told me, "I'll bite your fucking head off, literally. Don't test me, human." But, just to put things in a better perspective, our living conditions were like this now around the house. Stay out of his way, don't piss him off, and maybe, just maybe, we won't come to any harm. It was all we could hope for at this point. What could we do? Call the police and they'd send a trooper out here with his little pistol? We had semi-automatic rifles in our collection, and Ricky never thought it was enough to put this creature down. No matter what we all thought or wanted to think, that's how it remained. Also, he didn't care about me watching the trio from the kitchen window, or even taking video/pictures of them while they were there. But yeah, since then, I dropped my phone in the water and it died, and all that shit. I got a new one after we moved, and for your information, we stayed at that place for about another 2 years before we moved in 2013. And one day in the summertime, on a hot night, we heard a howl outside, and we all instantly froze in fear like, oh shit, they must be tired of the garbage now. Of course, none of us said that, but that's what we were all feeling. We all knew that it had to be them. No wolves other than the trio pack were in that forest. And sometimes we would see a single wolf by himself or herself, just playing with its tail, like a normal puppy would. This pup could tear us limb from limb without much effort, but nonetheless, it felt it needed to play. I don't know what it was doing, but I saw the others too. Packs of 2s roaming the forest. Packs of 5 or 8 or however many there were. All of them seen in the daytime, and there was no reason for them to be here at night, unless they wanted something new. I suppose the pack was growing too large for its normal meals. But yeah, we looked outside, through the living room curtains, and as soon as we pulled them back, staring right at us was a Dogman. It didn't look anything like the others though. This one was a lighter brown, spotted and had red eyes, opposed to the amber. This son of a bitch was right in the window, not a few feet snooping around sniffing the air or anything, but had its snout pressed up against the window when we pulled back the curtains. I don't know who it was, but I started smelling piss. Someone actually pissed themselves, and for all I know, it could have been me. We all instantly jumped back at the sight of the creature, while Ricky and my dad, along with my cousin's dad, who were both woken up by the howl, started passing out guns. We didn't go back near the window, but we did take another look at the creature and his pack. And they were behind him, and they looked like overgrown coyotes, all of them. Now this was absolutely not Big Hoss's pack. We'd never seen these wolves before, and it dawned on me that this could be the reason the Big Hoss's pack is out during the day. They give these guys the night while they take the daylight. But why haven't they attacked us sooner than this? Unlike the other wolves who don't care if we live or died on the property, this wolf here seemed to care very, very much. I got the feeling that it saw us as food, maybe even a demonic presence as well. It stood there at the window for about 5 minutes watching us get armed before it moved. What did it do, you ask? It smashed the window with an overly exaggerated hand gesture, of course. It paused after shattering the window with its light tap punch. We all unleashed hell on it, hitting it square in the chest, head, wherever it was exposed. We aimed and fired from behind a couch, and what happened next was like a scene from hell itself. Because it went down, it fell backwards like a tree falling, but the other wolves remained behind it staring. We all thought we had killed it for nearly 30 seconds before it rose back up the way it fell down, but this time it washed us with a sick grin on its face. It could have been showing its teeth or that thing that dogs usually do to resemble grinning. I don't know, to be honest. We all fired at it again, but this time it just closed its mouth and stood there. It's like it was telling us that it was only just humouring us before, and in fact, we were nothing. While still under fire, it then sprang inside the house, through the window, in a jerking fast motion, as if it had practiced this stunt 300 times before it did it. It stood 8 or 9 feet tall, just like Big Hoss, and it reminded me of him only in size alone. This one looked a lot leaner and more agile. But as it got inside, I lost the thought I had earlier about it being demonic. It just looked feral now, like a hungry wolf pack would look, but it didn't matter if it was a demon or a flesh-blood creature fighting to survive, because we were about to be the prey for the pack. Our ammo was running out by then, and this thing still wasn't going down. Please understand, none of us have military training. None of us even knew what a firearm looked like before we moved to this house. I know we missed a lot of shots we fired, but I'm positive at least 3, maybe 4 shots hit the thing after it stepped inside. It took a step closer towards us before it stopped and turned its head out the window and started growling. Then, the pack behind it followed suit and moved from their seated positions to 2 feet battle stances. It turned its head back towards us before it jumped back out the window and howled tremendously into the night sky. It was immediately met with another howl from the tree line. I remember seeing it was Big Hoss stepping forward out of the dark with his wolves behind him. The lighter shade red-eyed Dogman instantly dashed towards him and closed the distance in maybe 5 seconds at most. A fight ensued and it slashed Hoss on the side of his neck, but for whatever reason it didn't open him up like I thought it would. It might have bled, but it didn't drip any blood from what I saw. But by then, Big Hoss was ready to pay him back and took a swing, which looked like a haymaker from a human's perspective, at the other Dogman, and instantly the 2 packs started brawling right in our backyard. I even saw some of the Dogmen in both packs fall from injuries they sustained from one another. Nichan made the snap decision that we should leave in the truck and stay at a hotel for the night and come back in the morning. I think the lighter Dogman dodged Hoss's first blow, but it looked like he caught him with a follow-up combo swipe across the chest. It still didn't go down though, and they continued to brawl as we all got outside and back into the truck. We had gathered up whatever ammo we had left and went out the front door, putting 3 of us in the back with loaded rifles, while the rest sat in the front, and Dad drove us out of there. When we got back the next morning, there wasn't a single carcass to be found. Blood was everywhere, and at the side of the house, all over, it was scarred up with 5-point claw indents on the walls. But it was still standing, nonetheless. Even with the significant damage and blood and fur everywhere, no body of the Dogman was seen. What we did see though, when we looked out at the kitchen window, was the trio in the garbage again, with the boss man looking in our direction and standing on 2 feet with its arm pointing at the back of the house before losing interest and going through the garbage once more. We waited until they left before we looked at the back of the house from the yard, and written in blood was a single word, gone, written in this horrible handwriting. And since we did continue to see Big Hoss's pack around the following months, we assumed he meant the lighter shade Dogman was driven out of the area. I still don't think he gave a damn if we figured it out or not, but who knows what's going through the mind of Big Hoss, the dog boss. This next encounter is by the wonderful Smile Please 91, entitled In the Woods. Let's get straight into that. My dad told this to me recently, and I felt the need to share. When my dad was little, he used to spend a lot of time at his grandmother's. She lived up in the mountains, and she was one of those people who just took care of everyone. He said he lost count of all the times drunks or druggies would come in all hours of the night, and she would feed them, let them rest and send them on their way. She was a kind person, but also one who, what you see is what you get, and she wasn't afraid to tell you what was on her mind. He said he grew up not being scared of much because of her, and he thought the world of her. But there was this one event that happened to him in the woods that scares him to this day. It's one of the reasons he barely hunts or scouts alone, unless he can help it. He was about 17 or 18, and he had stayed with his grandmother so he could go deer scouting the next morning. The next day, he gets up early and heads out. My dad has some good sense of direction, but for some reason that day, he got turned around and lost in the dense forest of the mountains. He walked and walked, and night fell with him, still clueless of where he was. Tired, frustrated, and a little uneasy, he stopped to take a break and sat down. He said that it was pitch dark, his little flashlight not giving much light. He was thirsty and starving, and he just wanted to get back to his grandmother's. And so he sat there, thinking of where to go, when he heard heavy footsteps and twigs snapping behind him. Well, this scared him at first, thinking he may have come across a bear. He stood up, knowing if it was, he needed to get the hell out of there, but not be too hasty about it, as to spook whatever it was. He just started calmly walking away, hoping he was going in the right direction this time. But the footsteps, they followed him. They were extremely heavy, thudding behind him in a distance, but as he walked, he noticed that they were speeding up. My dad starts walking faster, and as you can guess, the footsteps became faster. In a short time, he hears them now, maybe a couple of yards behind him. Scared shitless, he turns around and shines his flashlight to see nothing but these huge hoofprints in their wake. The grass and such were dead and dying with each step. He starts freaking out and straight out sprints, now not caring which way he's going. He just wants to get as far away from whatever this is as possible. The footsteps behind him are following suit, sprinting after him. He only glances back once more, still seeing nothing but giant hoofprints and dead grass and leaves and such wherever they land. By now, he's not sure how long or far he's been running for when he sees lights in the distance. He runs towards them, hoping that someone can help him, and he comes upon a house or store. He breaks out of the woods, and joy floods over him when he sees it's his grandmother's home. And she is sitting on the porch, the lights on outside. His grandmother was a religious woman, and so she was reading the Bible at the time. As embarrassing as it was for him to admit, he said he started screaming for her, tears falling down his cheeks. She stands up and looks behind him to see the hoofprints and hears the sounds for herself. She holds her hand out to him and he grasps onto it as tightly as he can as she pulls him into her. She then said loudly, "You can't have him!" He said the silence that lingered after that was intense. He had buried his head into her shoulder, so when he looks up, all he can see is where the hoofprints and dead grass and leaves lay. She held on to him as he cried, whispering to him that it was okay and it was gone. Now, he has no idea what it was that was after him that night, and he doesn't want to know, but he is pretty sure his grandmother saved his life that night. This next true story was sent over by my good friend, Nobody. Let's get straight into that. In 1997, my best friend's boyfriend was found dead a couple of days after his 40th birthday with a hose from an exhaust pipe into his driver's door window up in the mountains. I'm going to leave the names out because, well, you'll see why. We practiced the Ouija board and we never had any bad incidents or anything like that because we made our own Ouija boards and did protection rituals. And you have to state your purpose and you have to let the spirits know that if they have negative or malevolent intentions, they are not allowed to participate. One time, we contacted him. I asked if he really wanted to die and he said no. So I asked him if he had to die and he spelled out yes. After a minute after the pointer slid over goodbye, I guess I had a vision. A memory is the best way to explain what happened and what it felt like. All of a sudden, I had this memory in my mind. He and I were talking, leaning against the pool table in the sunlight, and this is what he gave me to tell my friend. His father had got in too deep with the Vegas mafia/mob, and they were going to kill him. But my friend's boyfriend exchanged his life for his father's. He had to kill himself before he was 40. It was shocking to say in the least, and it explained why he always had a deep sadness in his eyes, even when he seemed happy. I still see us standing there talking, strange for sure, but I would pass a lie detector test. Respectively, Nobody. And remember, if anyone tells you that nobody cares, you can say, "That's right, I know nobody, and she cares." This next true and unexplainable set of events was sent over by my good friend and subscriber, Jeffrey Stewart, and is set just outside of Nairobi in Africa. Let's get straight into that. Hi DMT, it's Jeffrey Stewart from the YouTube comments. I live in Kenya, in the countryside, outside of Nairobi. I've lived here 6.5 years, so I'm fairly familiar with the wildlife. Also, I've learned firsthand Africa is a hotbed of negative, supernatural activity. Thankfully, I live in a type of fortress that is not only surrounded by a 7-foot-high cinder block fence, but on top of that fence is a 3 feet of electrified concertina wire. We have guards who are armed at night, CCTV, the works. Well, last week was a full moon. A full moon lasts around 3 days. Very strange things started to happen last week. A very unusual howling and growling from around 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. I just today talked to a native African who had heard it and said it was no known animal, and he gave her the willies. It was loud like a wolf, but there are no wolves here, nor are there any wild dogs. At about 4 a.m. was the first time I heard it. There was a few dogs in the compound which went crazy during the howling. It floated through the air and seemed very unusual to me. At least 2 others heard it too. I've lived in this compound for about 6 months and never heard it before. The last night of the howling, something messed with the electric fence, shorting it out. It carries 240 volts, so any normal being touching it would get killed. But after the security staff fixed it, something messed with it again 2 days later. Here in Africa, we have shapeshifters, just like among the Navajo. We also have an Eastern European population, and Romania is the origin of the werewolf phenomenon. I considered going with the armed guard outside the fence during the time of the howling, but thought better of it. As powerful as the G3 is, they don't use silver bullets, so if my suspicions are correct, we'd both not be returning. I can take recordings and even try to take photos through a telephoto lens, the 3 days of the next full moon. These things are real, but not friendly like the ones in I'm a Different Sort of Policeman series. They hate humans, and it's kill or be killed with them. I've seen many supernatural things while here in Africa. It's easy to be a skeptic in a cozy apartment in London or New York. Here, it's very different. Love your stories, DMT, but remember, they are stories. The truth is much darker, and I'm also familiar with American Special Forces operations against various tribes of Bigfoot in the USA. Should anything further happen, I'll be in touch in due course. Regards, Jeffrey. Wow. Just a short one there, guys. Running out of time and I've still got this cracking tooth infection. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Thank you ever so much to my wonderful friends and subscribers who have trusted me with their story and sent those over. Got quite a few more to go through and edit before I present them to you guys. Of course, as I said before, if you have a true paranormal or strange experience that didn't quite make sense, please do get in contact with myself at my Gmail, which is dmtforesterfear@gmail.com, or of course you can head over to the website at www.dmtforesterfear.com and go to the submit story or report page. As I mentioned at the start of this video, my health is gradually coming back. I'm feeling about 75-80% better now, so I'm going to have a lot more presence on Twitter and Facebook, speaking with you folks that might have a paranormal or cryptid encounter or experience, and then obviously bring that back to you guys here on the channel as soon as possible. Also, I will be re-recording my Midwest Dogman sightings and research playlist, literally 8 of the most best detailed reports with dogmen that you'll find anywhere on YouTube or the net for that matter. I know that 2 of them were covered by Swamp Dweller, but the rest of the 8 that I've actually presented so far are exclusive to this channel by my wonderful good friend Daryl, owner of Midwest Dogman Sightings and Research. So, I hope you guys enjoyed that and are looking forward to more from me. Lots and lots to get stuck into, lots and lots to help you escape the madness around the globe at the moment. Above all, guys, I hope you're well and happy. And remember, be safe, not sorry.